Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into a new edition of Batter Up, part of the Sports Insanity Network, sponsored by Halpin's Cards and Collectibles. I am Mike Rifkin. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful Thursday morning, June 1st. If you can believe that, it's already June 1st. So that's where we are. I'll bring the latest in Major League Baseball. A couple of things I do want to discuss. I'll get into some big series for the weekend, including one that I think a lot of people should love. Mainly, I'll get into a good thing baseball did for this series, but I want to start Major League Baseball All-Star Game voting has started. The first series of votes, you can do it. I believe it's MLB.com. You do the votes. Couple of things on voting. I'll give you how I would vote right now on each position, but there are a couple of things about the MLB All-Star Game that I really just don't like. One, I am not fond of fan voting. Unless you are a fan who is willing to understand that, hey, I don't need 7 or 8 guys from one team to be on a squad, because listen, and this is coming from a fan. I'm a fan like everyone else. If you just vote for your own teams in players, I'm not for it. I'm just not. I don't like it. I think it's very short-sighted to do that. And if you're not paying attention to the rest of the league, I don't care. I do not care if you don't pay attention to the rest of the league, then don't vote. Don't vote for the All-Star Game. That's one part. I don't love the fan voting. I wish it would be more done. Writers can have their say. The players should have a say. And listen, I get it. I get it. It's a game for the fans. But fan voting is not something, any sport. I'm really just not fond of fan voting. The other thing I don't necessarily love is every team that gets a representative. Because you're going to sit there and tell me a team like the A's, by the way, shout out the A's, took 2 of 3 from the Braves this week because baseball. A team like the A's is going to get someone in the All-Star Game where a guy on another team who may be more deserving isn't going to go, because we have to make sure a guy from the A's goes. We have to make sure a guy from no one's on the A's level of bad. The Royals are 22 under 500, so the A's are going to get a guy. The Royals get a guy. Although if you're the Royals, you send baseball, if you're smart, you send Bobby Witt. There's your guy. So I get it. It's kind of sounds like I'm just harping on the A's, and I get it. It's also probably be a piece of history because it could be the last time an Oakland Athletic could go to the All-Star Game. But as we go forward here, I don't love that every team gets a representative. It feels like a participation trophy. It does. Now, whoever goes for the A's will now be the All-Star Game MVP and shove it in my face. So that's fine. But listen, if there's not a guy deserving, then we can have a conversation about, hey, do we really have to do this every year? I always think there's one team I just go, yeah, I don't see it. I don't see an all-star here. We'll create one. The one other thing before I get into how I would vote All-Star wise, last year they did it for Albert Pujols, the legend spot. They created a legend spot for Albert Pujols. They have to do it again this year for Miguel Cabrera. And Miggy's numbers aren't great this year, I don't believe. But it's a legacy thing. And Miguel Cabrera, who announced he will retire after the season, it's very hard for me because I'm a big Miguel Cabrera fan, but he's hitting $196, no homers, 7 RBIs. I don't think he's playing every day, even DHing. But him and Pujols to me are two of the best players of their generation. No one will ever deny that. So we made last year honorary because about Albert Pujols. This year we have to make it honorary for Miguel Cabrera, and we could do that, which I think baseball will. I think baseball has always done a good job of sending guys off the right way. Derek Jeter, David Ortiz, even Mariano Rivera. They've always done a good job of sending guys off, especially for the All-Star game. So Miguel Cabrera has to play, even in a DH role. Fan voting is not fun for me. I don't necessarily love it. And not every team needs a representative. So that's the All-Star game breakdown from my perspective. How I would vote now. Now remember, fans don't get to vote for who starts. I could give you who I think should, although it's a little bit harder in certain aspects, but we can dive right in. The American League, I'll start at first base. I'd go Yandy Diaz from the Rays. 320, 12 homers, 30 RBIs as of this recording on June 1st. And the Rays have the best record in baseball. They're the only team with 40 wins. And let's be real honest here. A lot of people are not going to expect 5-6 Rays, even though you could really make the case that there could be 5 or 6 Rays on the All-Star team. Yandy Diaz has had a really nice start to the year. The 12 homers and 30 RBIs are nice, but I look at the 320 batting average, man. I just go. That's where I would lean for right now. Second base, I'm going to Texas, Marcus Semien, who's had a really nice year. Second year of a big deal for the first place Texas Rangers. Hitting 296, 8 homers, 48 RBIs. 44 RBIs. I'm sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. That's great. But Semien's played great. And Corey Seager went down for a couple of weeks with a hamstring issue. Marcus Semien's really played well, so he deserves an opportunity to go to Seattle. Shortstop, I'm going Bo Bichette. I love Bo Bichette. Great player, great flow. He's hitting 333 with 11 homers and 38 RBIs. And the dude is one of the best players in all baseball. So Bo Bichette, there's your AL starting shortstop for me right now. Third base in the American League, Josh Jung, Texas Rangers. A lot of people are going to ask who. 293, 12 homers, and either 32 or 37 ribbies. I'm going to double check that right now. But Texas is off to this great start, and $37 RBIs. I had it right. My handwriting is just not legible. But maybe one of the even maybe the front runner for Rookie of the Year in the American League right now. He's played really well. The outfield. Listen, I left the guy off, and it's really hard because I didn't want to leave the guy off. But I don't know how I take Yordan Alvarez out, Randy Arozarena, who's had a great start for the Rays as well, and Aaron Judge. Those would be the outfielders because I can't use Alvarez as the DH because I would have Shohei Ohtani DH, which would mean Mike Trout would be a reserve. And I get it. Mike Trout had a great year so far. So I would be okay with that, but I don't think it should be at the expense. The one guy who I think it would come at the expense of is Arozarena. And again, like I said before, the Rays deserve respect. As much as people do not want to give it to them because they think differently and they're very much not what a lot of people think. I just gave you 2 starters for the Rays, and they're the best team in baseball, in my opinion. I would also have the starting pitcher for the LB from the Rays, Shane McClanahan. I believe he's been sensational for them, and in a rotation that hasn't had Tyler Glasnow yet. McClanahan has 8 wins, ERA of 2.07. Let me rephrase that. Let me say that again. 2.07 ERA in the AL East. He's not doing this in the AL West or the AL Central. He's doing it in the Beast of the East. Shane McClanahan would start for me back-to-back years in the All-Star game. So that's the and behind the plate, I'm going Adley Rutschman behind the plate from the Orioles. 276, 8 homers, 27 RBIs. But the Orioles, to me, are one of these stories, man. Like, last year was a fun story. We didn't know what they were. We didn't know how they'd come into this year. They're good. They're very good. I know they lost 2 of 3 to Texas. I know they lost I believe they just lost 2 of 3 to Cleveland. But I'm going to chalk it up. Like, the O's are I won't say they're back, but they're good. They're young. They're fun to watch. They're the American League version for me of the Diamondbacks. They're fun to watch. They're entertaining. They're good. Now I want them to take a piece from another National League team, the Braves, and just say, okay, we're going to buy out arbitration years and sign guys to long-term deals. I've said that before on this podcast. I will keep saying that that's how the Orioles should operate. Will they do it like that? I don't know. I'm not in the front office, but that is something I would think the Orioles have to consider. So the American League again, Yandy Diaz at first, Marcus Semien at second, Bo Bichette at short, Josh Jung at third. The outfield will be Yordan Alvarez, Randy Arozarena, Aaron Judge. Shohei Ohtani would be the DH. Shane McClanahan would be the starter, and Adley Rutschman behind the plate. So that's how the American League lines up for me. The National League. I went with Pete Alonso first base, and I know the batting average isn't there, but the 20 homers and the 46 RBI leads baseball in home runs, and he improved immensely defensively. I know you could put Freddie Freeman there. I know you could put Paul Goldschmidt there. I think there's a case for the polar bear. I really just do. Part of it is biasness, but another part is just, I think where the Mets are, where would they be without Pete Alonso? I think it's a fair question. but I would go him over Freeman and Goldschmidt just slightly. The power gets it for me, so I'd go Pete. Second base, Luis Ariz from the Marlins. Again, I know the power's not there. 1 homer and 20 RBIs, but the dude's hitting 380. And he's a hit a day. He really is that. He's a hit a day. Won the American League batting title last year. Could win the NL batting title this year, which would be pretty cool. For a Marlins team that, listen, they're a surprise right now. Over 500, playing pretty well. So Luis Ariz would play second base. Third base, I'm going to keep the NL East theme going here at third base. I'm going Austin Riley. 10 homers, 28 RBIs, hitting 266. He had a little bit of a down spell, early in the year, but I don't necessarily love third base in the National League. It's not as deep as it used to be. So I would go Austin Riley here. Shortstop, I'm going Xander Bogaerts. The Padres, if the All-Star break was today, the Padres are the biggest disappointment in baseball. Bogaerts is not a real reason why. He's been a great offseason addition, 7 homers. But, Trey Turner hasn't had the start to the year I think a lot of people thought he'd have, especially after what he did at the World Baseball Classic. So that's off the table. Francisco Lindor, the average isn't there, but he does have the power number, so you can make the argument. And I wanted to get out of the NL East thing, so I went with Bogaerts. The outfield, 2/3 of this was really easy. Ronald Acuna, who right now I think would be the front runner for NL MVP. 11 homers, 30 RBIs, also hitting over 300. That would be number one. Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts to me does everything. He's played shortstop this year for the Dodgers. But he's got 11 homers, 30 RBIs. He's had a really nice year, so he'd be 2. That third outfield spot's weird. You put a lot of people there. I think the Diamondbacks are a cool story. So I went with Lourdes Gurriel Jr. He's hitting .312 with 9 homers and 29 ribbies. I could have put a couple of different guys in here. Again, this is how I would vote right now. So I think that's where I would lean. That's where I do lean right now. It could change. It could change tomorrow. I think there's a couple of other guys you could make a case for. The one guy, I'm trying to say this as nicely and politely as I can. I'm a no on Juan Soto being at the All-Star game because he just hasn't done it yet this year. And if Bryce Harper has a decent month of June, I'll be okay if Bryce Harper is in Seattle. But when you miss the first little bit of the season, it's hard. So that's where I go now. Behind the plate, I would go Sean Murphy from the Braves. He's been excellent, great addition. Hitting .286, 11 homers, 38 RBIs. So that's and listen, again, a guy like JT Realmuto is not having the year we thought he'd have. No one in Philly's hitting, which is really weird, but that's a whole nother conversation. But listen, and here's the thing too, because you're going to have the DH in the All-Star game. So let's say I'm trying to think of who the Astros beat last year in the World Series, and I realize it's the Phillies. If you're Rob Thompson, you get the DH spot, and Freddie Freeman or Goldschmidt gets voted to first base. you could put Alonso as the DH. That's not a concern. That's not a thing I wrote out. I do for the American League because it's more prominent. I know it's in both leagues, but it feels like National League managers utilize it differently than the American League managers. So the DH role. So the National League managers, I think, use it more to give a guy half a day off if need be. So the American League, it's more so, hey, I can use you as this all year. Sometimes they'll use it to give a guy half a day, but for the most part, it's one guy. So that's where I would lean. As for a starter in the National League, the tough part is I'd probably go Zach Gallen of Arizona. Because a lot of the big guys aren't having the year, but 7-2 with a 2.72 ERA. That's something there. So, Zach Gallen would be a guy I'd look at. I mean, Alcantara hasn't had the start we thought. Justin Verlander, he had the month off in April, but he's been okay. Scherzer, he's been okay. They're picking it up, but I would probably lean Gallen. If you want to go Keller from Pittsburgh, I'm okay with that one too. 7-1 with a 3.25. So 7-2 versus 7-1, but the ERA for Gallen in that ballpark that he pitches in, I would lean towards him being the starter in the American League for the National League in the All-Star. But listen, we're at the point now where June 1st, the All-Star Game is right around the corner in Seattle. I think a lot of people should be excited for it. I'm ready to see some of the talent on display. And, I can't wait to rip fan voting. So when the fans vote for the starters and they put in someone who is undeserving, I'll be here and I will tell you why the fans are wrong. But don't just tell me it's a game for the fans, because these guys care. I'll be honest with you. I don't care for All-Star games. I really don't. But baseball's always done it well. Outside of the fan voting. So I'm there. I think the All-Star game this year's in Seattle. So that should be a fun ride. All right. So some of the other things I do want to talk about too. I'll get into weekend series in a minute. Baseball came up with the idea that every team will play every team this year. And I think this is a thing going forward. And I think one of the cool things that brings in is you get to reignite some rivalries. And I'm not even talking about like the crosstown stuff, like Cubs, White Sox, Mets, Yankees. Like those things exist no matter what the schedule says, because those teams will play each other. But one in particular, and we get it this weekend, Dodgers, Yankees. Yankees, Dodgers. We opened the season with Yankees, Giants. Aaron Judge against his brother, Arson Judge. But think of the history between the Los Angeles Dodgers, Brooklyn Dodgers, and the New York Yankees. The World Series they've played against each other. The amount of World Series they've played against each other. Just the historical nature, the Don Larson perfect game. Jackie Robinson stealing home. This, like, if you are a baseball history buff individual, this is so cool because hasn't happened that often. With interleague play, it's once every 4 years. Now we're going to get to see this go on for years. And think of the star power now. Aaron Judge. Some people argue is the best player in baseball right now. Mookie Betts is a top 5 baseball player. Freddie Freeman versus Anthony Rizzo at first base is awesome stuff. The Yankees, I think, are going to get Giancarlo Stanton back this weekend. The Dodgers, I believe, are going to pitch Clayton Kershaw this weekend. So the historic, the coolness of and the superstars of the series exist. I really hope every broadcast, because I believe this is the Fox game on Saturday. Let me just double check that. Yeah, it's a Fox game on Saturday, along with Guardians Twins. And this is the Sunday night game, right? For ESPN? Yeah. So I hope both those broadcasts, because they're nationally televised, show the historical pieces of this rivalry. Which got me thinking, how would I create a lineup using both the Yankees and the Dodgers? This is all time. This is not a modern day, because modern day would be interesting. Excuse me. Because you can debate a lot of positions modern day. But I went all time. He without really naming a starting pitcher, but if you want me to, I'll name off how I'd set it up. I'd have Yogi behind the plate. 10-time World Series champ, 358 homers. Yogi was a beast. Yogiisms, man. So I'd go Yogi behind the plate. I'd go Lou Gehrig at first. Won a Triple Crown, 493 homers, 2-time MVP. I'm going Lou Gehrig. Second base, I'm going Jackie Robinson. And part of it's for the play, but more so for the historical significance of what Jackie Robinson means to all of baseball. So I would put Jackie at second. Third base, I go Ron Cey, 6-time All-Star, 316 career homers. Great slash line, 261, 358, either 495 or 445. Again, handwriting. Shortstop, this is recency bias, and I'll admit that this is recency bias. I put Derek Jeter at shortstop. For as good of a player as Derek Jeter was, I can't believe I'm going to say these words. I actually think Derek Jeter was a little underrated. Because Derek Jeter was the face of baseball at a time when you didn't hear from the face of baseball. But the Yankees were consistently winning the World Series, being in the playoffs. You look at who the face of baseball is today, and we could talk about the Trouts and the Harpers, but guess what? If you don't win a World Series, or you don't get to the World Series, and I have fun at Bryce Harper's expense, I'll admit, when he said at his introductory press conference for the Phillies, I'm bringing a title back to D.C., and the Nationals wound up winning the World Series. I will continually mock Bryce Harper for that, but for what he did last year in the playoffs was so impressive. Trout, we're still waiting for him to get back to the playoffs with Ohtani. But Derek Jeter was the guy on the team of the era of the Yankees. We're from 96 to 2001, or, if you want to go further, 03, they went to the 03 World Series too, despite losing to the Marlins. but he always stayed out of the public eye. Like Derek Jeter was a guy who never had A-Rod situation. And what I mean by that is, the scandals. And I think everyone wanted that for Derek Jeter. If you've watched the Captain documentary, but Derek Jeter was such a good player. And too many people cared about what he was doing off the field. But on the field, he was so good. He could do whatever Joe Torre asked him to do. Play Gold Glove shortstop, he could do that. Driving a tying run, I can do that. Hit a homer, Derek Jeter could do it. So I put Derek Jeter at short. What a player, man. What a player. The outfield, listen, I went historical. I went Duke Snider, 295 average, 386 on base, 540 slugging, 407 homers, 8-time All-Star. I went outfield. I didn't go by position. I've got 3 center fielders, basically. Mickey Mantle won a Triple Crown, 3-time MVP, 7-time World Series champ, 536 homers. 298, 421, 557, or 551. Again, handwriting. Again, one of the best players of his era. And then I'm putting Joe D out there, 3-time MVP, 4-time World Series champ, 325 average. And he has the one thing that will never, ever, 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 ever be broken. Nobody will ever hit in 56 straight games again. Nobody. We make it a big deal when a guy hits 20 in 20 straight. And how often does that happen? It does not happen often. That is a record that will last the test of time. So, Yogi behind the plate, Gehrig, Robinson, Say, Jeter, Snider, Mantle, Joe D. I'd put the Babe as the DH. Because how could you not? And you know what? If I'm naming a starter, I'd probably go Koufax. But you could debate a lot of people to start this game with these guys. So that's where I would go on a Yankee Dodger lineup historically. If you want to do a modern day one, or of today's teams, the toughest call probably would be Freeman versus Rizzo. That would probably be the toughest call. I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask, why no Reggie and why no A-Rod at third? No disrespect to Reggie, but I don't think he's better. He might be better than Duke Snider, but I wanted to give the Dodgers a little bit more respect, so that's why Reggie was left off. A-Rod was left off for a lot of reasons. One was I didn't want anyone commenting on this about I needed a guy on steroids for this team, so I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So that's a whole nother conversation. But as for the series at hand with the Yankees and the Red Sox, the Yankees and the Dodgers, I think it's great that they're going to play each other every year. I do. I think it's awesome. And this series is going to be great. The Dodgers are in first place in the NL West. The Yankees are trying to catch the Rays in the East, but they just took 2 of 3 from Seattle in Seattle. So, and the Yankees over their last 10 games are 6-4, while the Dodgers over their last 10 are 5-5. So essentially, you're the same record. But You'll see Kershaw pitch in this series. I believe Garrett Cole will pitch in this series. So the stars are going to be out, man, in Hollywood this weekend. Judge versus Betts, Freeman versus Rizzo. This is going to be awesome. If you're a baseball fan, I don't care if you're a Yankee fan. I don't care if you're a Dodger fan. If you're not one of these fans, watch the series. It should be great. Other series this weekend, the Blue Jays come to Queens to play the Mets. That's a fun interleague matchup. Vlad Jr. versus Pete Alonso. Chris Bassett, former Met, will pitch on Friday night against Justin Verlander. That should be a fun pitching matchup. And two teams who are kind of still trying to find themselves in the Mets and the Blue Jays. So, and right now they have identical records at 29 and 27. AL showdown, you got the Rays and the Red Sox. Huge series for the Red Sox because if you take 3 of 4 from the Rays, okay. I think the Red Sox, I know they're a game over, but I don't think a lot of people thought they'd be a game over at this point. You know, and Chris Sale's been great for them. Yoshida, the Japanese kid, he's been really good too. The Rays are the best in baseball. And, I just lost 2 out of 3 at Wrigley. They're the only team now at 40 wins after yesterday. But the Rays and the Red Sox, always pretty fun and entertaining. AL West, you get the Mariners and the Rangers. The Mariners are starting to play pretty well. The Mariners they can pitch. Bryce Miller, Castillo, Kirby. They've got guys who could throw. If they can get the offense going, that'd be great for them. And Texas has played really well too. Texas, what a difference it is. One, that they're healthy, but 2, Bruce Bochy, I think, makes a huge difference for this team. He comes in with I want to say swagger, but there's a swagger about Bruce Bochy that I think most people want to see. Great leadership qualities. That's why he's a future Hall of Fame manager. So Texas and Seattle get together. Also in the MLS, the Angels and the Astros. The Astros are starting to play really well. I know they just beat up on the A's over the weekend, but the Astros are a good team. They're the reigning World Series champs. They just got Altuve back. Jose Abreu just hit his first home run. Pitching staff is pretty good. And the Angels, listen, the Angels are 3 over 500. And this is a good 4-game set for them against the Astros. If they can figure out a way to take 3 of 4, man, we're talking about the Angels at the deadline possibly being a massive buyer. So there's that. The Braves going to Arizona to play the Diamondbacks. That should be a fun series. The Diamondbacks are young, fun, and exciting. Kind of like the Braves in a sense. Acuna, Albies, those guys are so good. They just got Soroka back to the Braves. So you get the Braves in Arizona. And then you get the O's and the Giants. And that, to me, is an interesting one because the Orioles are off to this awesome start. The Giants, they're at 500. But these are 2 teams who are kind of, I think, in a similar boat. But I think the Orioles have the more young, upside, exciting players, where the Giants are, they need to kind of get back to that. They need to get back to how they develop some of their younger players, the Joey Barts of the world. So that could be a fun series. And of course, as I said at the top, Dodgers-Yankees. Like, it doesn't get better than Dodgers-Yankees. But it should be a great weekend of baseball. I'll be back Sunday morning. Not sure who I will have with me. But we will definitely talk the weekend, preview next week's games. Listen to this podcast, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com for great blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. Check us out, Twitter, at @SInsanityReal. Check us out, Facebook. We're there. We're everywhere. Thank you for tuning into this edition of Batter Up, part of the Sports Insanity Network, sponsored by Halpern's Cards and Collectibles. I am Mike Griffin. Thank you for listening, everybody. Have a great Thursday, and I'll see you again Sunday. Great day, everybody.